Suffering is one of the greatest mysteries of human life. Every person encounters pain, loss, disappointment, sickness, or confusion at some point. We all face these challenges. Many people ask the same difficult question: if God is good, why does suffering exist? The great Catholic theologian Saint Thomas Aquinas spent much of his life wrestling with this profound question. Through his writings, especially the Summa Theologica, he offered a deeply hopeful and logical explanation. This explanation is rooted firmly in the teachings of the Catholic Church. Let us visualize his teaching step by step. As if we were walking through a spiritual map of suffering, Aquinas begins with a simple but profound truth: suffering was not part of God's original plan. In the beginning, humanity lived in harmony with God, but through sin, disorder entered the world. This echoes the Bible's message. Once humanity turned away from God, suffering, death, and struggle followed. Aquinas teaches that suffering exists because the world is not yet fully restored. Creation is good but wounded. Think of a beautiful painting that has been scratched and torn. It still has beauty, but also carries damage. This means suffering is not proof that God has abandoned the world. Instead, it reveals that the world is still in the process of being healed. Now imagine a master artist restoring that damaged painting. Aquinas wrote that God allows evil only because he can bring a greater good out of it. This profound idea is central to Catholic theology. God does not create suffering, but he permits it because he can transform it into something meaningful. This is like shadows in a painting. Without shadows, there would be no depth. Without contrast, beauty would look flat. God, the perfect artist, can use even darkness to bring out greater light. This perspective changes how we see suffering. Instead of meaningless chaos, it becomes part of a larger story, a story we cannot yet fully see. Aquinas teaches that suffering trains the soul. Imagine life as a spiritual gym. Just as muscles grow through resistance, virtues grow through struggle. Courage cannot exist without danger. Patience cannot exist without delay. Compassion cannot exist without pain. Suffering becomes the environment where virtues are formed. For Aquinas, this is not punishment, it is formation. When a person endures hardship with faith, hope, and love, their soul becomes stronger and more beautiful. Virtue is the true wealth of heaven, and suffering often becomes the path that leads us there. At the heart of Aquinas' teaching is the suffering of Jesus Christ. Christianity does not present a distant God who ignores human pain. Instead, God enters suffering personally through the cross. Aquinas explains that Christ's suffering transformed the meaning of human suffering forever. Before Christ, suffering seemed like defeat. After Christ, suffering can become participation in redemption. When believers suffer with faith, they unite their pain with Christ's sacrifice. Their suffering becomes meaningful, powerful, and even redemptive. This is why the cross stands at the center of Catholic spirituality. It is not only a symbol of pain, it is a symbol of victory. Aquinas believed that the saints demonstrate the hidden beauty of suffering. Consider the life of Virgin Mary. Her life was filled with sorrow, misunderstanding, exile, and watching her son die. Yet she became the model of perfect faith and trust. The saints show that suffering does not destroy holiness, often it creates it through suffering. Ordinary people become extraordinary witnesses of faith. One of the greatest biblical examples of suffering is the book of Job. Job loses everything: his family, his health, and his wealth, yet he remains faithful. Aquinas reflects on this story to show that suffering is not always a punishment. Sometimes suffering is a mystery allowed by God to deepen faith and reveal trust. Job never fully receives an explanation for his suffering. Instead, he receives something greater, a deeper encounter with God. This is a key insight. The ultimate answer to suffering is not information, it is relationship. Aquinas teaches that suffering helps free us from unhealthy attachment to the world. If life were perfectly comfortable, many people would never seek God deeply. Comfort can create spiritual sleep. Suffering wakes the soul. Hardship reminds us that our true home is not here. It redirects our hearts toward heaven. In this sense, suffering becomes like a compass pointing toward eternity. Aquinas never viewed suffering as the end of the story. He believed suffering must always be seen in light of eternity. Just as a storm feels endless while we are inside it, human suffering can feel overwhelming, but from the perspective of eternity, it is temporary. He compared earthly suffering to preparation for eternal joy. The greater the struggle endured with love, the greater the capacity for happiness in heaven. This transforms suffering from meaningless pain into hopeful preparation. Saint Thomas Aquinas invites us to see suffering differently. It reminds us the world is wounded but being healed. It allows God to bring greater good from darkness. It forms virtue and strengthens the soul. It unites us with Christ's redemption. It draws us closer to heaven. Suffering remains difficult and mysterious. Aquinas never denied its pain, but he showed that suffering is not empty. It is filled with hidden meaning when seen through faith. Suffering becomes not a sign of God's absence, but a pathway to deeper union with Him, and in that light, suffering is transformed from a problem into a promise. Thank you so much for joining me today. If you found this video helpful, please give it a thumbs up, and don't forget to subscribe and hit that notification bell so you won't miss our next video.